Welcome to the start of this week's reading vlog where my cat has decided my hand is life. He is so needy and such a koala. Anyways, let's talk about the books I'm reading. So I'm listening, not physically reading, The Second Foundation by Asimov. The audiobook says I'm like 30% of the way in, so I guess this far if we're doing an approximation. I honestly have no idea where this story is going. So to give you my rundown on how me and this trilogy have gotten on, I loved the first book on a reread. Or actually, not even a reread. When I first picked up Foundation in college, I was not there. I was too tired. I was not mentally in a headspace to go through the mental problems and thought processes Isaac Asimov likes to do. He likes to set up a lot of thought experiments. And I really liked the first book when I reread it when I moved to Boston and I was on the train a lot, so I had a lot of time to just read things. And then, I don't know why, but it took me a long time and I picked up the second book, Foundation and Empire. And it was not as good, like significantly not as good for me. We had less of those kind of thought experiments done in a compelling way, and they introduced a device that I was like, this is random, this is changing the whole tone of the story. That, as it is, then there's the third one, which is, the title's a spoiler, but you want the book? Okay, you can have the book. But, it's like a child. But you're basically going off the consequences of the second book, and there's suddenly this, like, new human ability that's just casually around. It's very weird, but I don't mind it. It's kind of getting explained, and we have more, like, back and forth confrontations where people are using a lot of deduction. It doesn't feel organic. Like, the conversations of characters in Asimov books are not like conversations I would ever have with a human. Well, maybe I would if I was in college and we were studying or discussing philosophy, but these are very much people like, well, it has to be this way because let me tell you my thesis, and then they go through the things, and someone else is like, oh, you forgot a thing, it's probably like, and they go through their list. And so far I'm in a part where it's like every 2 seconds the tables have been turned because there was a variable we didn't know about. And that's fine. Doesn't lend for character development or really interesting world building, but I read Asimov when I want cool kind of thought experiment type things. But we're a third of the way through and I have no idea where this plot's going after this. Like, I feel like we're about to, like, in theory, tie up some loose ends to a pretty big part of what I thought was going to be the whole plot of this book. And so we will see what happens, but I'm enjoying the audiobook a lot. The narrator really does a good job giving these characters personalities that are not on the page. So that's really cool. Enjoying my hand. It's a very humid day here in Boston, and I feel bad for him and all of his fuzz, and I'm just apparently covered in salt. I am also still reading Way of Kings. I'm trying to read this much today, if you can see. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm going to try. And I'm about, what page am I on? 381 out of 1,000. So I guess that's 38%, because I can do quick math like that. And I am still liking my reread. It's really all I've got for that. I just like rereading this series. See previous vlog if you want me to attempt to explain what this series is about. But there's a Storm Along, and I'll link that down below. So if you really want to watch some in-depth videos by people who have been putting time into that content, they have a Storm Along playlist, which if I can find that, I'll put down below. The only Cosme related thing I've done is I did a science behind the magic of it's not even part of the magic system, it's just part of the world building, kind of is an ode to quantum mechanics, and I really loved it, so I made a video on that. Y'all squirmy? Are you done? But the book I've been picking up for book club is The Other Americans by Laila Lalami. I did it. There's a lot of L's, and I have to remember where all the L's are. This is a story set in California about the aftermath of the hit-and-run death of a father in that community and grandfather. And he happens to be a Moroccan immigrant in this desert California community. I know, at least for me, sometimes if you hear California, you're instantly thinking of the cities, but this is not a city. This is a pretty middle-of-the-nowhere desert area in California. And so you get to see the perspective of many different people in this town as we try to parse out what happens on that night, but also explore what's emotionally happening with these people. And it involves a lot of everyone getting their own flashback. Everyone's chapters are in first person. It's a very digestible read, which I appreciate. I don't read contemporaries often, so this is kind of nice. I am really invested. So there's no real main character. Because like I said, we have a whole cast of characters. It's almost like the town is the character, if that makes sense. But I guess of one of the more main point of views, we get Nora. She kind of annoys me. Like, I get it, but she annoys me. But mainly, I don't know. Actually, the whole family annoys me. Like, it all makes sense, and some of it is very relatable even to me. For example, there's a sister relationship. The older sister is not the main point of view. That's not Nora. I think her name's Selma. And the younger sister is Nora. Now, I'm going to put you down. You're being a butt. But Selma they're both the same family, same parents, but Selma is able to pass as white. She is paler skin, blonde hair. She went through school without anyone ever questioning where she was from or anything like that. And Nora happens to be darker skinned and looks not white, essentially. So everyone's always like, are you Mexican? Where are you from? Even though, ironically, Selma was the one born in Morocco and Nora was born here. I can relate to this because my sibling and I, both born from our parents, my dad's Venezuelan, my mom's white. I think I pass as white. I think on average when people look at me, they don't think about my race or my ethnicity or anything like that. I'm just a person on the street. Versus my sibling does get much darker than me. And I mean, if we go out in the sun for the same amount of time, we tan dramatically differently, to the point where they actively avoid going in the sun because they don't want to deal with that. And they go into this book, it goes into how Salma was able to be popular, have friends, be successful by our standards in school, while Nora didn't have as many friends. Nora was frequently bullied, especially because she was in high school right after 9/11. So it's not, great to be Muslim right after 9/11. It was, yeah. I'm liking that story exists, but at the same time, these characters are just so stubborn. Everyone is so stubborn of the main family. And then we have Jeremy, who is, I think he's white. We haven't been given much. We had his last name, and I looked it up, and it's a Polish last name. And you know from the beginning that was a former Marine, and he's back in his hometown. And there are actions he makes. Like, I like his character, but he does things that like when you're reading a romance book, and sometimes something someone does could be construed as creepy if it wasn't received well. That's what I feel like he's towing the line with. He does some things that are kind of creepy, but he hasn't crossed that line. He hasn't, I don't know. He's a weird character. And this is also a pseudo mystery, but not really. I feel like at this point in the story, I'm 75% of the way through, I kind of know what happened, but I'm also not 100% sure. I feel like there might be a reveal in this next 100 pages that completely changes the framing of what's gone down. So overall, I'm enjoying this story. I have no idea what we're going to discuss for book club. This is kind of more of a... I mean, there are definitely issues that are brought up, but it's not a book that's discussing a lot very deeply. It's a quick read. Like I said, I've brought up some of the commentary that I have been enjoying. There's also just a lot. The reason why I say it's not doing anything deep, which is fine. Legit, I've been enjoying reading this book a lot. Don't think I'm not. But it just seems like we get a lot of moments where we're getting a lot of good representation of different people, but we don't get to stay with it. We have a detective for this case, and she just moved from DC. She's a black woman in this town, and I mean, since she's been with her husband, she's been the mother of his son, so it's not biologically hers. So I mean, that's a whole thing, right? That's really interesting. I would love a whole book about that relationship, especially because the son moving to this town in high school is having a very interesting relationship, and she's learning things about her son and trying to figure out, how do we approach this? I'm being vague because I don't want to spoil it, but it's like we've had maybe 10, 20 pages about that, and that could be really interesting on its own. We could just have spent the entire time with the point of views from this family. I don't know, I think how it's done is very enjoyable, but like I said, it doesn't make it deep. So, I guess, I don't know how many people pick this up expecting it to be deep. I guess I wasn't, but normally our book club discussion books are, I don't know, I guess we've just been reading denser things lately. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what people will talk about with this when we talk about it on Monday, because, yeah, that's when we're talking about it, which is why I'm reading it now. So those are the things I'm reading, and this was a long check-in, but too bad, I guess. And I'll see you guys in a bit. Oh, it is so warm. But I just came back from the library, and so I have a bunch of new library books. I finally returned all the things I got in March, and I got new things. Also, my cat heard me. I clap to set up the audio and stuff, and so he knows, and he's down here. But I gotta talk about books, and it's too warm. If he jumps up here, you'll see him, but I'm just too warm. So, in terms of currently reading, I finished The Other Americans. I liked it. I thought it was a very enjoyable story. I liked the representation there was. I didn't like that I didn't get to explore anything super deeply. Like, we kind of, yes, hi there. This is a story about grief, and I felt like I've had other stories explore grief in, I don't want to say better way, but in a way that I connected with more. Yeah, that's what I'll go with. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading it while I was reading it. It was very digestible. Like, it's too warm. You have to be there. I can't handle you right now. I just took like my second shower of the day because I just walked to and from the library, and I'm just like dying. So I finished that, and I thought it was good. And I'm still working on Way of Kings. I'm that far. So yeah, I'm a little past the halfway point. I have like 2 bookmarks because I'm trying to get little chunks done a day because I like rereading, but I also like reading new things. Finding the balance is hard. And I started today Dark and Deepest Red by Anna-Marie McLemore. Oh, I've never read anything by them. This is their new release of this year. I heard about it at Social Distance Book Fest. Actually, I heard about it before then, but when they had an interview on a panel is when I was like, well, I guess I should pick you up. And I'm so glad. I'm only 10 pages in, but I am excited to be done talking to you so I can go read it. And I've also been listening to the Second Foundation still, and yeah, this is probably my second favorite in the trilogy. It's just, like I've said in the previous clips, just all about deduction, which I don't mind when I'm like in the right headspace, and I kind of really like the audiobook, so if I ever reread this, I think I would do it all audiobook. And if you didn't know, there's like going to be a Foundation TV show, so I don't really know. Maybe they'll just use the world, because I don't think this would, at least I don't think what I've seen in this trilogy would translate well. And it's kind of like iRobot, where they took the premise of the iRobot short stories and just like made their own long story. So I would be fine with that. So yeah, I am doing well with all of my reading and enjoying it, but I'll just briefly show you all the things I got from the library. So obviously you saw Dark and Deepest Red. Like, I have the Kindle library, but I miss physically reading things, and I love how pretty this is. It's just so pretty. I just like it. I got Midnight Robber because there were some things I just really wanted to reread physically, because there are like stories within stories, and there's different font choices and excerpts, and yeah, I don't know. Plus, I wasn't expecting to get this cover. Not that it matters, I don't own this, but this isn't the standard cover you see, but I kind of really like it. You have Tan, and then like the other personality of Tan, the Midnight Robber, and back here, I'm pretty sure this is Chichiba and this is Benta, who are characters in the book. So yeah, I really do like that art. And so, I don't know, I really like this book. I mentioned it in a previous vlog. I've got Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. I've only read a short story by them. I've heard very mixed things, but this is pretty short. Like, it's less than 300 pages. Like, they're big pages, but it's not even like, they're not all full, so I'm excited to see what this is going to be. I got The Thing Around Your Neck by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I'm excited for these short stories. I've heard amazing things, so I'm excited. and Jade City by Fonda Lee. Finally gonna get to that. And sequel to Boundary Side, Shorefall. I love when I get new releases from the library because you can just be like, get the new book hardback feel without like owning it. Because this book would cost me like $28 and no. And so, but I have to reread Boundary Side first. So that's like my mini library haul. I pretty much had access to all, if not most of these on my Kindle, but I just missed physically reading. So that's this quick check-in. I'm gonna go back to reading Dark and Deepest Red in an AC environment because I turned it all off for you guys and now I need to go escape. Bye. All right, time to end this. I spent my entire weekend reading Dark and Deepest Red. I didn't expect that to happen. I mean, my goal is always to read books fast, especially if I'm into them. You just never can tell. So this is my first Anna-Marie McLemore book, and I loved it. I loved it a lot. Gosh. It just explores... I'm trying to remember what I said in the last clip. I don't think I knew much about it. It's very much got fairy tale-like vibes. Like, you got present day and you got 1500s France, and you have this pieces of a fairy tale that are taking place in present day that had happened in the that have happened in the past to a Romani family in a town where they were residing and trying to pass as Italian. And you have Briar Meadows, which I'm pretty sure is in Texas. I don't think the book ever says Texas, but it says Briar Meadows, and when I look that up, I'm pretty sure it's Texas. And you have, is it Rosella? Well, I'm pretty sure she is Mexican based. Yeah, Rosella, based off, they were mentioning things that I associate with Dia de los Muertos, which is largely a Mexican thing. If I'm wrong about that, I am sorry. And then you have Emile, who is related to the people in our 1500 timeline. And in Briar Meadows, there's a time of year that's always mystical and magical, and they just accept that, which is cool. I like that just as a premise. I want to live in a place where for like 2 weeks of the year, there's just going to be random magic happening, and we all just accept that as a town and don't freak out. That'd be cool. And this year's magic kind of ties to what Rosella's family does for a living. It has to do with these red shoes that kind of spark, I don't know, people to be more romantic and lively, I guess. And so it's a really interesting magical time. But Emile kind of gets these flashbacks to a different time, and we have this whole story in the 1500s, and it's just really good. The parallels between the two timelines are very striking. I really loved the story. I really love that there is a trans character in our 1500 timeline, and how that's approached with vocabulary that would be around in that time. I think I really loved the lush writing style, even though that's not my average writing style for this kind of fairy tale thing. It was really good. I don't know. It's also one of those things where I wonder if my own personal experience helped like elevate this for me. You have scenes in both the 1500s and present day where you have these girls who are not like the other girls in their town. They are not white, and they are trying to blend in and be white. One to survive and one to just fit in, and the way that's done with like makeup and clothing, and it reminded me of when I was growing up and I couldn't buy the jeans everyone else was buying. Low-rise jeans were very in when I was in school, and they do not work when you have I think back then I was a 26 waist and like a 40 hip, and that just doesn't work. If you don't know what that means, it means I have a big butt. And, that was like one of the first things where it's like, I mean, most people probably would have thought I was Italian. I'm not Italian. I'm Venezuelan, and I am white. I am both of those things. And I also have this hair, which I love. I love my hair now, but back then it was such a cross to bear because it doesn't know what it is. It's not normal, or at least it cannot be handled in the way that like all my white friends could handle their hair. And yeah, it was frustrating. And I cannot tell you the number of times I've had a person come up to me in my schooling experience and go, "Oh, let me just straighten your hair. You just haven't had me do it yet." No, you aren't the magic. If the salons can barely do it, your like 12-year-old butt cannot straighten my hair. But you know, that like wanting to belong, to fit in, to feel other, I hadn't had those thoughts in a long time, because largely I pass as white pretty seamlessly. Like I said, most of the time if people even think I'm something else, they think Italian. Especially where I grew up, we had a lot of Italian people. Sometimes I got Jewish or Russian. Those were different, but no one ever actually lands on what I actually am, because that's what happens when you are mixed. You don't look like any one thing. It's weird. So yeah, but I loved the struggles Emil and Rosella were going through to connect both with who they are, which are individual people, and how they relate to their heritage and culture. I really loved the ending of the story. I was talking to R, because R is like one of the only people I know who've read this book, and they were excited to hear my thoughts. And they're like, "How'd you like the ending?" And I think I like gave this whole like essay. And they're like, "Oh, I just meant in general." It's like, oh, I have thoughts. I had so many thoughts. I just loved it. Because, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but there's just like, I just really, really liked it. And like, I have a friend who I know will also love this, and I texted her when I was 20 pages in, and I was like, you need to put Dark and Deepest Red on your buying list, and she always buys everything. I also don't tell her all the books I read that I think she'll like, but I know she will like this one. So yeah, you can't tell, I love it. I didn't expect to love it. It is so good. And yeah, I mean, that's all I really got. It's also a really pretty cover. I also actually finished the second foundation. I don't have as many glowing thoughts about it. It's my second favorite. I think the first one I liked the most, 4 stars. The second one was like 2.5 stars, and this one's like 3 stars. It's fine. I think it was better for me to have it as an audiobook. I think the deductive play between characters in almost every other scene was boring after a while. Like, I think I really enjoyed that in the first book, and I missed it in the second book, but then it was too much in the third book. Yeah, and I don't know. I also just didn't like the ending. If you've read this book, I have some issues with how they resolved this conflict. Like, not necessarily the actual ending. Like, I'm talking about, like, what the Foundation chooses to do once they discover the second Foundation. That's like, I don't know, I didn't like that. And it also suffers from what I think a lot of classic sci-fi that I have read that is primarily written, I mean, yeah, most of the classic sci-fi I've read has been white men. I have read Ursula Le Guin, but she also like gets into more modern, because she's like written through like such a swath of time. In like, you know, this 1984, Fahrenheit 451, sometimes, yeah, a lot of Philip K. Dick. I get to read these stories that are very interesting and compelling in some ways, and then they have like the most boring cast of characters ever, or if they're not boring, they are such caricatures. And I think now that I just read so many other things, that's just so noticeable to me. So yeah, and I am not finished with Way of Kings, but I've made much progress, and I will probably finish it in next week's vlog, because if you don't know this about Sanderson books, about when you get to around here, yeah, right here, that's where you can't stop reading the book, because all of the exposition, all of the build-up, there's this huge payoff, and I'm excited. I can't remember, there's actually a word people use for it, but I don't know it, because I guess I'm a fake fan. It's something avalanche or something. I don't know. All I know is that when you get to the end of any of his books, it goes by really fast. So yeah. Also, housekeeping. Remember, I have my Q&A from last week's vlog. That'll be up in the cards, like my previous vlogs usually are, or you can just go search through my channel. But to enter that giveaway, just go read the description of that video or listen to the video. It's all there. It's open for another week because I'm over 500 subscribers. Thank you guys. And also, I hate changing theme songs because I hate when TV shows do that. But for some reason, my royalty-free music keeps getting copyright claimed. So I'm just I finally went through YouTube's music and picked one that I'm okay with. So when you next watch a video, it will probably be that, but not all of them. I have like some pre-filming that's worked out where I think not all of them might have it yet, but eventually it's going to be phased out. Because not that I'm monetized now, but I just don't like dealing with it. So sorry, but I think the new one's fine. I hate change. Yeah, so that's it for this one. Here's Cat. He's just sitting on my lap. He's just happy I don't mind him on my lap anymore because it's finally like 70 degrees instead of 90, you know. That's a big change. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.